In today's world defined by constant striving achievement and pushing limits, the idea that what truly belongs to us comes on its own can seem not just naive, but even contrary to the logic of modern life. From a young age, we're taught that we must fight, compete, plan, and control. Everything is supposed to be the result of our will effort and determination, yet Carl Jung had a very different view of reality. For him, destiny was not something to be earned, it was something to be revealed. It was not a goal to be reached, but a certain life path that unfolds naturally when we are in harmony with ourselves. According to Jung, what is truly ours doesn't come when we're desperate, but when we're ready. And this readiness has nothing to do with strength or ambition. It relates to deep inner maturity, to a process that cannot be rushed or planned. Jung understood that life follows a rhythm that doesn't always match our desires or expectations. Often we feel late, like something's slipping away, that others are ahead, faster, better. This constant rush leads to anxiety, and anxiety fuels the need for control, which in turn breeds tension. Ironically, the more we try to accelerate events, the further we drift away from them. Destiny doesn't work like a mechanism. It's not a machine you can start on command. It's more like the growth of a tree. You don't know exactly when it will bloom, but you know it will if the conditions are right. And those conditions are your inner self, your readiness, your presence in life as it is, not as you want it to be. When you let go of the struggle, space opens up to encounter what is real. According to Jung, destiny is not some fate inscribed outside of us. It's an inner movement of the soul. It's something that already exists within you, but needs the right conditions to reveal itself. Just as a sculpture already exists within the stone, before the artist's chisel uncovers it, your life holds within it a form that gradually unfolds. Jung highlighted the importance of the unconscious, that part of us that knows more than we do. That's where the seeds of destiny lie. So our task is not to search for them outside, but to create space within ourselves where they can grow. This requires trust, patience, and courage to avoid rushing into action when the time for silence comes. Not everything valuable appears in the spotlight. Often the most significant changes happen in the shadows slowly and invisibly until suddenly something is revealed and we realize it is exactly what we were looking for. The greatest challenge on the path to destiny is letting go of control. We want to know, plan, and have certainty, but life doesn't work that way. Jung taught that our ego, the part of us that wants to manage the world, must give way to a deeper wisdom. This doesn't mean we should be passive. On the contrary, we need to be mindful, present, and open. We are meant to engage with life, but without forcing it. Destiny is recognized not by how it unfolds exactly as we wished, but by the deep yes. We feel inside something that says, "This is my place, my time, my move." And even if the path has been winding and the circumstances difficult, suddenly everything starts to make sense. Not because we planned it, but because we allowed it to happen. Destiny doesn't need to rush. It needs space, and space is created when you stop chasing and start listening. There are moments in life that seem random, yet they touch us deeply. You meet someone on the street after years, just as you were thinking about them. You find a book that answers a question you hadn't even spoken out loud. You dream of something that becomes a reality the next day. Carl Jung called this synchronicity, a phenomenon where two seemingly unrelated events intersect, creating a meaningful whole. These aren't just ordinary coincidences. They are messages, subtle whispers from the world pointing the way. According to Jung, synchronicity is how the unconscious, both personal and collective, connects with our conscious mind, not through logic, but through symbols, signs, and events that touch you in a way that's hard to explain, but impossible to ignore. Synchronicity doesn't appear when you actively seek it. It arises when you are open and receptive, in a state of inner movement. It's like silence. You can't produce it, but you hear it when the noise settles. Jung believed the outer world and our inner world are connected more deeply than we realize. When something shifts within you, the reality around you begins to reflect that change. Not necessarily in a literal way, but symbolically. Encounters, events, gestures start to carry meaning. It's as if life is responding to questions you haven't even spoken aloud yet. That's why synchronicity holds such power. It doesn't come from the mind. You can't plan it. It's like a mirror showing you what's hidden beneath the surface. It's destiny speaking, not through facts, but through the meaning behind them. Not every coincidence is synchronicity. Sometimes things simply happen. But there are moments when you sense something clicked, that something arrived for you, not by chance but because you were ready to perceive it. Synchronicity requires presence. When you're caught up in rushing, distraction, or overthinking, it's easy to miss. But when you pause and quiet your inner noise, you'll realize reality isn't chaotic. There's a delicate pattern weaving itself around you, as if someone is threading meaning just for you. In those moments, you feel you're not alone, that something greater than yourself is guiding you, even if you don't yet know the path. Synchronicity is not proof, but an invitation to engage with something deeper, to step into a space where coincidences don't exist, and every event can have meaning, if you're ready to accept it. In a rational world, it's easy to dismiss these experiences as illusions of the mind. But Jung wasn't a mystic disconnected from reality. He was a psychologist who understood that human life is made up not only of facts, but also of interpretations. What we consider meaningful becomes a guiding signpost. Synchronicity doesn't tell you what to do. It shows you that you're in the right place, that something is aligned, that your inner compass is working, even if you don't yet know where you're headed. These moments bring depth to everyday life, as if life itself briefly speaks the language of the soul. And maybe that's the essence, not just to live, but to listen, because destiny doesn't always announce itself with a loud bang. Sometimes it arrives in a stranger's smile, in a note that falls from a shelf, or in a conversation that changes the direction of your thoughts. Then you realize it wasn't a coincidence, it was a sign from you to yourself. People naturally tend to avoid pain. From childhood, we learn that suffering is something bad, something to eliminate, something we need to suppress or minimize as quickly as possible. But Carl Jung saw pain in a completely different light. To him, it wasn't an enemy, but a guide. Suffering doesn't happen by chance. It's a signal that something inside us is breaking, something is shifting, something is ending so that something new can begin. Pain is the process of giving birth to a second self, one that no longer wants to live according to others' scripts, one that refuses to compromise with its own soul any longer. That's why the path to destiny rarely feels like a walk in the park. More often, it's like a journey through a dark forest where nothing is clear and every step hurts. Yet, it's this forest that teaches you to truly see yourself, your wounds, your illusions. Without this pain, you wouldn't be able to recognize who you really are. Suffering often arises when you try to stay in a place that no longer belongs to you. These are the moments when life gently, and sometimes brutally, says, "This path is over." And although the ego rebels, clutching desperately to the old ways the soul already knows, pain, in this sense, is the language of transformation. It reveals where the familiar ends and the true begins. But to cross those boundaries, you have to be ready to break down. Jung didn't see pain as a mistake, but as an initiation, a rite of passage. In mythology, the hero always suffers before discovering their calling, not because suffering is the goal, but because it purifies, burning away what's unnecessary, removing what's false, and leaving only what's real. So if you find yourself in pain, don't rush to ask how to get rid of it. Instead ask, what wants to be born within me? Suffering also forces you to pause in a world full of distractions, constant running, plans, and noise. Pain makes you stop. Suddenly, you can't keep acting like you did before. Something breaks, something stops working. It's then that you connect with yourself on a level that was previously unreachable. When everything falls apart, you lose the strength to pretend. And it's often in this vulnerability that something unexpected emerges. You start to see what was an illusion. You begin to hear what was suppressed. The question you feared before comes to the surface. Is this really my life? Pain opens your eyes, even though at first it closes them with tears. But those tears are part of the process. They are like rain that washes away the dust from the window through which you view yourself. It's not about suffering for suffering's sake. It's about not running away from the lessons it brings. Jung said you can't touch the soul without descending into your own shadow. And the shadow is everything we've rejected within ourselves. Fears, shame, traumas, anger, regret. This is where pain takes root, and it's precisely in the places you fear most that what can set you free is hidden. Paradoxically, the greatest light often awaits us in the deepest darkness. Pain is not a punishment, but an invitation to a deeper connection with yourself. It's the door to a place where you're no longer a mere copy of others' expectations, but become your most authentic self. That's why so many people find their true path, not when everything is going well, but when everything is falling apart. It is at that moment you embark on a journey that can no longer be forsaken because it is yours. Pain was just the gateway. Now, the journey begins. Humans naturally cling to what is familiar, even if what they know no longer nourishes or helps them grow, and sometimes even causes pain. We hold on to people, situations, places, not because they're good for us, but because they're familiar. Letting go awakens fear. However, Jung emphasized that in the process of transformation and spiritual growth, departures aren't just inevitable, they're necessary. When something leaves your life, it doesn't always mean loss. Sometimes it's a way to free up space. Sometimes it's the answer to a prayer you never even voiced aloud. The people you regret often were a stage, not the destination. The situations that fell apart had already served their purpose. And although the mind may resist accepting this, the soul knows that not everything leaving should stay. We lose to gain something deeper. Sometimes, only after a loved one departs do you realize how much of yourself you gave away, how much you bent to fit into something that wasn't yours at all. You wouldn't see it otherwise. Often, only after being laid off do you realize that for years you lived in limbo, feeding your ego, but starving your soul. Some departures are brutal, sudden, and painful. Others are quiet, slow, and almost imperceptible. But all of them, if you look deeper, signal that something is ending so something new can begin. Jung believed life has its own rhythm, its own wisdom, which doesn't always follow logic. What disappears isn't always a mistake. It's just that the time for its presence has come to an end. And if you don't let go of what's leaving, you won't be able to embrace what's waiting for you. Letting go is part of a greater order that isn't always visible from our human perspective. Imagine a tree shedding its leaves in autumn. It doesn't mourn them, nor does it try to reattach them. It knows that losing the leaves is necessary for new ones to grow. Life works in much the same way. Sometimes something disappears from your daily life because, at the soul level, you've already moved on. What was cannot continue with you. It's not about celebrating departures, but understanding them. Sometimes the greatest act of self-love is allowing something to go, not clinging desperately to a relationship that has become a burden, not convincing yourself that it's still worth it. When deep down you already know the answer is no, it's in those moments that you learn to trust, not in people, not in plans, but in life itself. Some departures test your readiness to stop living for others, your readiness to be yourself, even if that means loneliness. When something leaves a void, awakens inside you, and it is in that void that the new you is born. Carl Jung emphasized that every breakdown, if not suppressed, leads to transformation, but you must go through the void, through uncertainty, through chaos. It's like breaking a vessel. It seems like everything ends, but it's merely a prelude to a new form. The things that leave show you what no longer resonates with who you are becoming. And while it hurts to see something end, it hurts even more to remain in what is already dead. That's why sometimes the greatest gift fate gives is not what appears, but what disappears. And often, within the act of letting go, lies the sign that you are ready for something more. There are encounters that pass without a trace, polite words, gestures, glances that leave no mark. But there are also those moments when someone steps into your life and everything changes. Sometimes it lasts just a few hours, other times it stretches over years. Jung believed that some encounters are too meaningful to be mere coincidences. He saw them as actions not only of the individual subconscious, but also of the collective, as if two souls who have known each other before find each other again in the physical world. An encounter that stops you, that disrupts patterns, that opens wounds or heals, doesn't happen by chance. It's no accident that this particular person appeared in your life at this very moment. The universe, like a subtle playwright, brings the right people into your life exactly when you're ready for their role to touch something inside you. Sometimes these encounters can be painful as you meet a mirror, someone who reflects back what you didn't want to see. Someone who unknowingly stirs your shadow, revealing wounds long buried. And while you may feel anger, rejection, or the urge to escape, something has already been awakened. Such meetings aren't meant to comfort, they are meant to awaken, yet there are also quieter, gentler encounters, as if someone is speaking your soul's language. You don't need many words, just a glance, a presence, silence, and you feel this person was meant to be here. It is then that the feeling of recognition arises, not infatuation, not fascination, but a deep, I know you, as if your souls have known each other since before you were born. Jung didn't need religious language to describe this. For him, it was a spiritual phenomenon rooted in the archetypal structure of reality. Some people come into our lives to teach us something, others to take something away. Still others remind us who we are. Each encounter is like a message encoded in a person. It's not about what they say, it's about what they awaken inside you, and that awakening is the trace of destiny. Sometimes someone appears in your life for just a moment to drop a single line, and that line changes the course of your decisions. At other times, someone emerges who guides you through darkness, unknowingly becoming a beacon. Serendipitous meetings aren't always pleasant, but they're always necessary. They are like landmarks on your spiritual map of life. Without them, you wouldn't reach where you're going, or perhaps you wouldn't even realize you were headed anywhere at all. Meeting a particular person right now, at this moment in your life, means far more than you think. You can ignore it, you can resist it, but the mark has already been made. And if that meeting carries a deeper meaning, it will do its work anyway. Some souls appear only once, but that's enough to cause an inner earthquake. Others stay longer, bound to you by fate through lessons you share. Jung said the unconscious strives for embodiment, and people are the instruments of that embodiment. So, serendipitous encounters reveal something already within you, waiting to be reflected in another person. While not everyone you meet is meant to stay forever, those who leave a mark on your soul are exactly where they need to be. even if their purpose was simply to awaken you in a world filled with noise, expectations, and external standards. It's easy to lose what truly belongs to you. From childhood, we learn what's appropriate, what's valuable, what we should do. Family, school, society, they all give you a map before you even discover who you are, but that map rarely leads to your soul. Jung emphasized that true orientation doesn't come from the outside. It comes from an internal compass that speaks when you begin to truly listen to yourself. The thing is, the voice of the soul is quiet. It doesn't shout like the ego. It doesn't persuade. It doesn't pressure. It simply whispers gently but persistently. The problem is that most of us can no longer distinguish what comes from the heart and what comes from fear, what is the voice of authenticity and what is merely the echo of others' expectations. Your internal compass doesn't provide concrete answers, but it suggests directions. Sometimes it's just a feeling of relief when you consider a certain decision. Other times, it's tension in your body when you go against your own instincts. Jung said that body and psyche are inseparable. That's why it's worth paying attention to the signals coming from your body. It knows when you are in alignment with yourself. What truly belongs to you brings peace, even if it's challenging. What doesn't belong to you creates chaos, even if it appears safe. But for this compass to work, you need to be quiet. You have to turn off the autopilot, let go of comparison's pressure and the rat race, because you won't recognize yourself by living someone else's life. After all, no one else has access to your destiny. Only you can feel what genuinely belongs to you. Often you can find yourself following a path that isn't yours for years, and only burnout, a crisis, or inner emptiness forces you to stop. This isn't by chance. It's the soul trying to awaken you. The compass hasn't been lost. It's just been unused for a long time. Now you have to rediscover it, and it won't be quick. It will be a process of listening, feeling, and observing. Start with the simplest things. What brings you joy for no reason? Where do you feel free, without masks? What activities absorb you so completely you lose track of time? These aren't philosophical questions, they are practical ones, because the soul doesn't speak in words. It speaks through emotions, through breath, through subtle signs. When your inner compass starts to work, it will guide you with a precision that no external instruction can match. Recognizing what truly belongs to you takes courage, because it might turn out that you don't want what you've gained, that the life you've carefully built doesn't reflect your inner self, that your relationships, work, and goals have been responses to others' needs rather than your own. This brings fear. If this isn't mine, then what is? And this is the turning point, because from this question arises the quest for authenticity. It's not about immediate changes or drastic decisions. It's about returning to yourself step by step, truth by truth. Carl Jung often said you can't recognize your own path without confronting your shadow. Your compass won't lead you where it's easy. It will guide you where you can be true. And that is the only direction worth taking. We are beings of time. From the moment we are born, we learn to measure life in hours, days, plans, and deadlines. We think of time as something linear, with a past, present, and future. Our task is to move along this line like on a string. But there are moments when something inside us senses that this is an illusion. When we plan and everything falls apart, when we long for something and the world is silent, when it feels like it's too late. And it's precisely then that something happens that changes everything. Carl Jung observed that psychological time and spiritual time have nothing to do with the clock. He said life unfolds according to an internal logic we often don't understand. What looks like a delay may actually be the perfect moment. But to see that, you have to look deeper. The human psyche doesn't like to wait. We want immediate answers, quick results, instant relief. When something doesn't arrive on time, we see it as a failure, but divine time, if we can call it that, the rhythm that the soul follows, knows no hurry. It knows only maturity. Certain experiences can't happen until you're ready to receive them. You try to rush love, career, decisions, forgiveness, but it doesn't work. It's like trying to force a flower to open instead of waiting for it to bloom naturally. So spiritual maturity means no longer seeing delays as punishments. You begin to see them as protection. Maybe you didn't get what you wanted because you weren't ready to receive it yet. What may be delayed isn't necessarily late. It might just mean that it's becoming possible now. This tension between our desires and life's rhythm is one of the greatest sources of suffering. Yet, it's within this tension that we grow. Jung said the psyche develops through a process called individuation, and this process is ongoing. It's not a single event. It follows its own timing, a timing beyond our control. If you look back on your life, you'll see that many delays turned out to be gifts. People who arrived late, events that happened afterward, often proved to be exactly what you needed at the time, even if you didn't understand it then. It's as if life operates according to a broader plan that you can't see. Your role isn't to rush things, but to listen, observe, and trust. Just because something isn't happening now doesn't mean it won't. And conversely, the speed of an event doesn't necessarily mean it's the right timing. In the inner world, it's not about pace, but about resonance. Divine timing doesn't follow calendars. It doesn't consider your age, deadlines, or societal expectations. It flows like a river that knows when to speed up and when to slow down. Your task isn't to control the river, but to learn to swim with it. Paradoxically, the less you try to control time, the more you notice that everything happens exactly when it's meant to, neither sooner nor later. Many people live under the illusion that the meaning of life will suddenly reveal itself in a flash, an enlightenment, a single big aha moment that explains everything. They search for revelation as if it were a breakthrough, a final scene, a ready-made answer, but life in its deep wisdom rarely works that way. Jung didn't see destiny as a hidden map waiting to be found, but as something that unfolds gradually with each step. There isn't a single moment when you suddenly know everything. It's a process where through experiences, decisions, and encounters, you begin to recognize the shape of who you are and where you're headed. Like a sculpture hidden within stone, your life reveals itself through subtraction, through what falls away, what disappears, what proves not to be yours. What's truly yours doesn't appear all at once. Often, you aren't even aware that you're already on the right path until you look back. You go through difficult relationships that teach you boundaries. You experience failures that awaken your courage. Fatigue that forces you to rest turns out to be an invitation to reflection. These are not obstacles. They are stages of revelation. Life speaks to you in the language of events, not declarations. But to understand this, you must let go of the need for immediate clarity. Revelation does not work like a light switch in a dark room. It operates more like dawn, very slowly, barely noticeably, but relentlessly. And suddenly, after some time, you realize that you can see something, that which was once blurred has taken shape. Not because it has changed, but because you have matured enough to see it. The road of revelation is uncomfortable because it does not give a sense of control. You cannot speed it up, plan it, or predict it. Often, what was supposed to be temporary turns out to be crucial, while what seemed destined fades away without a trace. In such a world, the only constant is your willingness to be attentive, to observe not only what is happening outside, but also what is happening within you. For life reveals itself not only through facts, but through their reflection in your psyche. The same event can be a key or just noise for you, depending on how you look at it. Revelation is not so much new information as it is a new perception. The moment you see an old landscape with entirely new eyes, and then you know that something has changed within you, and that change was the revelation. Jung wrote that the soul does not develop linearly, but spirally. We return to the same themes, experiences, emotions, but each time at a different level. This spiral is the path of revelation. Every time you think, "I've been through this before," life says, "Yes, but now see it differently." Revelation is not about discovering something from the outside, but about unveiling what has always been within you. Sometimes it takes years to understand the significance of a single event, but that doesn't mean that it was meaningless. It only means you have matured to its fullness. And therein lies the greatest mystery of life. Everything that is yours reveals itself not when you want it to, but when you are ready to recognize it. In a world that constantly screams, silence has become something suspicious. When you are silent, people ask if everything is okay. When you choose solitude, they think you've lost something, or perhaps even that you have given up. But Jung understood something that many have forgotten today. Silence and solitude are not emptiness. They are space. They are a meeting place with what is most authentic and primal. When life falls silent, it doesn't mean that nothing is happening. Sometimes it means that everything truly important is just beginning to take shape. Silence isn't the absence of sound. It's a return to the tone of your own soul. And solitude is not isolation. It's a return to yourself. When you're alone and there's nothing around to distract you, you begin to hear a voice that has been drowned out your entire life. It's not a voice from the outside. It's an inner echo that tells you things you didn't want to hear before. It's in solitude that the questions you've been avoiding arise. Who am I without my social role, without relationships, without tasks? What truly moves me when no one is watching? When these questions arise, they don't always bring relief. Sometimes solitude hurts because it confronts you with the truth you've long avoided. But it is this truth that leads to revelation. What is yours often hides beneath the layers of noise you create yourself. Only in silence can you hear it. Notice how many moments of spiritual awakening, those true, unimaginable ones, happen in solitude. Prophets, mystics, artists, all those who have touched something deeper, did so not in crowds but in isolation. Jung spoke of the necessity to descend into the shadow, into darkness, to meet your true self. And this meeting rarely happens on the surface of life. You must go deeper where nothing distracts you, where you don't have to prove anything. It might be an evening in an empty room, a walk without your phone, days when no one calls you. There, right there, something begins. Something reveals itself. You may not recognize it at first, but you'll intuitively feel that this emptiness is not a loss. It is a beginning. And it's in this silence, in this solitude, that the universe starts to speak a language without words. It doesn't give you answers. It gives you space in which those answers can emerge on their own. It might be a feeling, an image in dreams, or a sudden understanding of something that once seemed vague. Paradoxically, when you stop searching, you begin to find. Solitude is not, therefore, the enemy of destiny. It is its guardian. Because only in solitude can you truly hear what life has been trying to tell you all along. And then, not intellectually, but existentially, that what is real doesn't come from outside. It has always been here. It was just waiting for you to stop drowning out the silence. Trust is one of the greatest challenges for people today. We are taught to plan control, manage risks, anticipate outcomes, and demand results. Anything uncertain stirs up fear. Yet, Carl Jung saw a deeper truth in this uncertainty, that life, while seemingly chaotic, follows its own rhythm and wisdom beyond the logic of the ego. Trusting life doesn't mean being naive. It doesn't mean passively waiting or giving up on action. Instead, it is a profound way of being where you accept that not everything has to be clear in order to be true. It is the recognition that there is a greater order, and you are part of it, even if you don't fully understand it yet. Sometimes life takes away something you loved. Sometimes it keeps you from achieving what you desire most. In those moments, trust is challenged. An inner rebellion arises. Why is this happening to me? What did I do wrong? But maybe it's not punishment. Perhaps it's a course correction. Maybe life isn't working against you, but with you, in a language you don't yet understand. Deep trust doesn't mean that everything goes your way. It means having faith that even what seems incomprehensible makes sense, and that one day looking back from a distance you will understand why you went through it all, why you met certain people, why some things left and others arrived. Trust is the awareness that you are being guided, not by chance, but by the inner order of existence. Trust in life most often grows in the shadows, not when everything falls into place, but when nothing is certain, and yet you keep moving forward. That is when a true relationship with life is born, not as a series of random events, but as a living, intelligent force. Jung often spoke of the archetype of the pilgrim, who doesn't know where they are headed, but knows they must go. This archetype reflects all of us, people without a map, but guided by their hearts. Deep trust is an act of courage, to say yes to a path without guarantees, to say yes to a process that doesn't deliver immediate results, and to understand that life is not a contract with conditions. It is a mystery that only reveals itself to those ready to embrace it without the armor of control. The greatest revelations often come not when you are desperately searching, but when you allow them to appear. You cannot force destiny. You can only be ready to recognize it. Trust is not the belief that everything will go your way. It is the certainty that whatever happens carries deep meaning. It may not be immediately clear or easy, but it is true, and this mindset opens you to life's greatest gifts. When you stop trying to control everything, you start to notice that the most important things come on their own. Not when you want them, but when you are ready to receive them. And what is truly yours, as Jung said, will come find you anyway. You don't have to chase after it.